And we're live with the road again. Thank you for joining me, Tabs. Today,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, no problem, no problem. So today you've just left Galaxy Racer, and today we're gonna talk a bit about your endeavor, your journey through like with Galaxy Racer, your general take on the Swedish scene and what it needs like on a grassroots level to become better internationally, and also your own roles, strengths and weaknesses, your like how you set up practice, how a lot of just like I'm gonna try and challenge you on your Counter Strike knowledge and
Yeah,
see how that goes.
yeah,
All
sounds good.
right, so let's start with Galaxy Racer. How did this team start up?
Okay. Um, well, before talking about Galaxy, I have to talk about Japaleno. Okay, the original lineup. So there's always been a core between the twins, Freddy Frog, Relaxa, and then there's always been Pleasant, who's been in the mix of everything. And usually DGL has been a part of it, but obviously he left to coach Contact. But I've always been in the mix somewhere in between. Like sometimes I've been with, sometimes without. But generally speaking, the core is the twins and then Pleasant. And when DGL left, I was basically the only replacement that they could get in terms of like experience, knowing the guys, also wanting to IGL, and yeah, so that's where it began. And then when I joined, we started search for an organization immediately, and then we joined Galaxy. Yeah.
All right, so throughout your journey on Galaxy and you as an in-game leader, did you learn a lot playing with an established core and trying to like play around and call around these guys' tendencies generally?
Yeah, yeah. So it's quite interesting because I am a self-taught IGL, if you can proclaim that. I never had a proper IGL throughout my entire career. I've had Happy as an IGL, but since he has a very old style of calling, there wasn't a lot of fresh idea. Like he's lurking, he calls something, and then we go based of that. It's not a I'm not hating or anything, but it's just how he plays and how he IGLs, and it's a very different style from mine. So basically the things I've learned is just from watching YouTube videos and uh, seeing how other people think and play. And then I played FBLC, FPL, and stuff. And then when I joined this team, Galaxy, which is the main question now, is that they basically, or I said, I want it to be 70-30. So I want to be like, I understand that you've been a core for very long. This is basically me talking to them now in TeamSpeak.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I basically was like, okay, guys, you've been a core for 3 years. You have been up and down. I'm not very experienced with the IGL role, but I obviously have ideas, and I also have things that are good and bad, and we'll see what happens, and then I will implement my ideas, and then you will basically implement what you like as well, and then we basically come to a middle ground, and then when that middle ground is found, we can build around that, right? Like a good foundation. So when I joined the team, I would say 70%, maybe 80, 60, like I don't know exactly, but was all mine. And then we based it off of their old stuff. And then basically, while the team was developing, we found new things, and then we made it together. So all the rounds and all the strats or defaults or whatever has been influenced by me, but mostly by the core. Which is very interesting because the reason why I left, which is in my statement, is because we have a different philosophy on how to play CS. Um, and that can be a really good thing or a bad thing, but in this scenario, obviously, it was a bad because I left. But instead of having like a 70-30, we became a 50-50, and then sometimes lower, sometimes higher, but everyone didn't agree on how to play, and that's why I left. So I've learned a lot from them on how to think and play CS, but obviously it didn't fit my way of doing it. So yeah, but
Yeah,
it was a very good experience.
yeah. So
Yeah,
you actually learned what it means for like cohesion and for trust in IGLs actually during this time.
yeah,
Yeah. So when you've played with now Relaxa and Freddy and those guys,
yeah.
have you like gone out and maybe okay, no, let's do something else. Let's talk about your IGL philosophy. So let's
Okay.
first of all just take that, like, what is your general IGL philosophy?
Uh,
How do you
the,
want to play Counter
yeah,
Strike? Like, try and
yeah.
try and describe it in a simple manner.
Okay, so it's really complicated because I have like four different answers. So it number one, it depends on what teammates you have. So, for example, my team was based on Pleasant, who is a very aggressive player, and then we have Freddy Frog, who's more of a he's a very defensive player. There's no talking around that. And then we have Relaxa, who's he's in the middle. So he does things as an opper, but he usually likes to play more of a schedule role. You know, as an
Yeah,
opper, more
yeah,
flashing, taking defensive angles, and those kind of things, which is
more
not bad.
supportive.
Yeah, more supportive
Yeah,
opper.
yeah,
And that's not necessarily bad, but obviously, if you structure a team based on your players, which you should do if you're a good captain, in my opinion, then you will obviously have a play style depending on who the players are, and then you would have to adapt to that. So yeah, that's the number one part.
yeah,
The number two part is who you're playing against. So obviously, if you do any sort of demon analysis on the enemy team, and you have I think every IGL should have a huge playbook, which doesn't mean you use it every single prac, you don't use it every single game, but you should at least have a way of practicing playing really defensive, playing mid aggressive, and then playing super aggressive. You should have all three stages down, and then you should try to build around like your team and then the enemy team. But you should always be comfortable yourself more than the enemy. So, like you should not counter more, basically, in my opinion, at least. Um, so yeah, it really depends on your team, who you're playing against, and also what you think is best in the, from what you've seen before. And also the day. So that's a really important thing. So for example, my team we weren't inconsistent, but we had days where we felt more teamwork was working better in terms of communication, and utility and everything was more on point with trade fragging. And then we played more slow, like more methodical Counter Strike. And then there were some days we just shot so fucking hard, like it didn't matter who we played against in practice, like we could literally fuck everyone up, you know.
yeah.
And then we were super aggressive, but that also depends on the day, obviously.
But yeah, that's also something that you have to recognize, like what day you are playing at, like
Yeah.
what your level is at on the current day.
Yeah, and that was probably one of the hardest parts for me because I realized that even though I felt maybe on point or I felt off, then I also have to realize that maybe my calling wasn't suiting everyone else. So I'm a pretty selfish player. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like it doesn't mean I can bait, but I'm more of a like I think more about myself, even though it's a team game, which is one of the hardest things I've struggled with as a captain because I always feel like I need to think more for myself, but then I realize it's a team game, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
and that's been a struggle for me, but I've become a lot better at it. But that was one of the struggles I had in the beginning with Galaxy.
yeah. So did you like? Can you compare yourself to a professional in-game leader right now, who is also like selfish and does a bit of what you do on the team?
I guess so. May, Maybe the best comparison would be Blame S because he's a bit of a lurker on T sides, and I'm the same. And it doesn't mean he calls a lot like Happy, for example, but I think when I watch them play, and I have not a really close relationship with Benjamin, like Blame,
Yeah, yeah.
but I've spoken to him about CS and I've asked for some help and tips on Steam, and we've talked a little bit. And when I feel him talking, and or when he's writing ideas and tips to me, I feel like we don't connect, so to say, but I think we have the same philosophy in a way. Um, so I think Blame F would be the closest right now. But I want to be obviously more like Glaive. I want to be like, make a super structured team. I want to be the best in the world, and I want to be able to adapt to any situation, be the best teammate, and still shoot 20 every game. You know?
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't take like, for example, like a team like Furia. You don't look at them and say, "Oh my God, they play exciting Counter Strike, so I want to play like that." Or you wanna like, or do you want to be more the Astralis like method?
I wish I could be both. As I said, like an IGL should have all three different stages of being
Yeah,
a CS team, and that makes you unpredictable. It also makes you very consistent because that way, if you have a bad day when you're super aggressive, you can go back to your defensive way of playing, and that way you can still keep the momentum up. You can still win rounds, and that makes you an overall better structured team. And I think that's why Astralis is so good and always have been so good because they can actually do all three. And I think Fury is not necessarily bad, but they will always have a problem playing against teams if they're not having a really good day. And if they're super consistent individually, it works. But then you know how it goes.
yeah, yeah,
It's I wish so as an IGL or a captain, I wish you could do all three perfectly, which is impossible. But that's like my goal. So I don't want to play like exactly like one team. I just want to adapt all three different styles and then get my own and then yeah
yeah.
work
Implement your
around that.
own.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, all right. So with you as an in-game leader, like, and the like you saying you're not really, like, you haven't really had a true in-game leader, like you haven't really played for one before. So can you maybe talk me through, like, how did you become an in-game leader? Like, how did you develop your own style? Like, YouTube videos can like only do so much, you know. You need to
Yeah.
get the experience, but how did you like get this experience?
Okay, so I guess that begins a little bit in the beginning of my CS career. So I played League before I played CS. I started playing CS in 2015, and I played so-called semi-professional since 2017. And I knew, okay, it's I hope like I'm gonna send this to him after I think. But
Yeah,
his name is 16K. Okay, he
yeah,
was back in the days. He won. I think he won FPL maybe 2 times. He had a VAC ban, so that was just when they implemented VAC bans into you can't play in FPL and so on.
yeah,
And he got kicked, and then they created FPLC. And because I knew that was so maybe 6 months after he got kicked, we played pugs together in Master League and stuff, and I was horrible. Like I was so bad. Like I was so bad. And then I started playing with 16K, and he has a he I don't know. He's not an IGL. He's more of a do this, do that, and then I can do that, and then we win. That kind of play style. And the way he fought, he didn't explain to me, but I understood the way he was thinking. And he wasn't necessarily the best player in the world at the point, but he obviously had a lot more experience and playing against the tier one players, and he was very good at the game back then. So I respected him, and I started playing with him in pugs. And then when they created FPLC, there was no back ban rule, so he got invited to the first invite wave, as you call. And because I knew him, he gave me an invite too. Like he basically introduced me to everyone. And back then, it was FPL Challenger was very good. Like it was Draken before he joined NIP. It was Freddie B in Epsilon. Like the
yeah. Old,
Swedish. Yeah,
yeah, the old Epsilon core, yeah,
yeah, it was basically tier two players, all of them. And I hadn't even played an HOTV match at this point. Like I was 100% the worst player in the league, without a doubt. And I was horrible. I was arrogant. I was kind of toxic, and I had so much confidence because I got invited, even though I didn't deserve it. I was just a shit kid who was
yeah,
really bad at the game. So, so I learned a lot from playing with other people that were way higher skill level than me, and necessarily I didn't understand everything they were doing because I didn't actually understand. But I started calling a lot because I felt like pugs in itself can be structured that makes more sense to other people. So, for example, in FPL, the reason why I won FPL twice since I qualified, and the reason why is just not because I'm better than anyone else in the league, or it was just because I called structured in a way that people could refrag and play together. And it wasn't insanely hard strats. It was not like in 5 seconds you go out the flash here and then we go here and you go. It was more like let's just go contact B, throw these flashes, smoke kitchen window, Mirage
yeah,
B, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
just go together and trade. And it works. And that's kind of where I got it from. And then a lot of pros, they got involved with the way I was calling in FPL. It wasn't necessarily that they thought I was bad or good. It was just more like, okay, let's do this instead. And then I would understand why. So I got their way of saying what's good and not good in certain scenarios, and it took a lot of time to learn those sort of things. But that kind of built my style of what's good, what's bad, when you should do what, who should do what, and so on. So that's kind of where I got it from.
Did you also learn to figure out what the strengths were on the different FPLC people you were playing with during this time?
Sorry, what did you say?
So
What?
the strengths of the different players you on team with, did you learn
Yeah.
how, like, their strengths and weaknesses, and how maybe you should set them up in like a puggy sense, you know?
Yeah, because I obviously I'm still really bad at it. Sometimes I don't know what people play in their roles. Like sometimes I'm like, so who plays op? And sometimes simple on team. No, I'm kidding. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
I know.
obviously kidding, but it's kind of like that. Sometimes I'm just like, so who plays op here? So I don't usually know what people play in a role in a team, but I can also tell how they play in the beginning. So if I would call a pistol, and if it's a like Mir, for example, I know he's gonna ask for lurking top mid in FPL,
Yeah,
then I understand. Okay, he's a lurker. And then if okay, let me rush out with the Mac 10 B house. There will probably be 4 people there, but just let me go. That's an
yeah.
entry fragger. So obviously I don't really think that complex, but I realize those things like just unconsciously, and then I just base it off around that. But most of the time, it's just seeing it's just like the three things that we talked about in the beginning. You know, super aggressive, defensive, or whatever.
Yeah.
If people are literally just running out mid and killing three people, even though they have op and one tapping them, then you don't really need to have very sophisticated calls. You just basically say, guys, just smoke mid window, smoke top mid, and then just flash and go kill. You know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So have you also tried like in this time? Did you like you got on teams with people who were not as skilled, just going out and killing three people like instantly? So how would you like how did you face that challenge? Like did you have to like do more teamwork plays, or how did you like t- grab that and face that challenge?
In my team,
Yeah,
or
or just no, just like we're talking here in FPL, like in how do you like learn? Like how did you face the challenge of not being on team with skilled players and just say go kill, you know? How did you win rounds?
yeah. So I think
Oh yeah,
it's
you can talk about teams as well if it's easier for
yeah.
you. Yeah.
But FPL, I think generally it's very hard to say because I need to also add this. It's not because I played a lot of FPL and I called, that's why I won. It's very RNG based. Like sometimes you can call the best strat in the entire world. There can be four at B on Mirage and you call an A rush and still the guy on A kills four people. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's highlight shit, and I don't know. It's really hard to say, but I just think that I can maybe give this. I don't know if it makes sense, but hopefully it does. So in a team, for example, if I would call something for 4 rounds in a row, and I would build a pattern inside my own head and why I would call a thing, and then I would build it for next round, and then someone else would say, okay, he did this last round, maybe we can do this. You know, the mid
Yeah,
round
yeah.
aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes when you think the big picture and you think about your own patterns and how you play in the enemy teams, your own individual skills, sometimes some things slip, even though they're super obvious to other people. And that's why I feel like in FPL or any other game where if you can adapt very easily, and you understand the game and you have some sort of IQ, then anyone can do it. And I think FPL is one of those things where you see a lot of patterns from people because people play the same way where they're comfortable. So, for example, if I play Mirage, I know that Santaris is going to be connector every single round as a CT if I'm playing against him. And, you know, even though I don't watch his demos before FPL or in,
Yeah, yeah.
I still understand how he plays and I understand what I need to do to kill him,
Yeah.
yeah, which is very hard, by the way.
Yeah, I
Fucking
can
Santaris, yeah.
imagine. I can imagine. Online
Yeah,
warrior.
yeah.
All
But
right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes
Okay.
complete sense. Yeah, it builds on your experience, which you like where you learn to adapt and play more
Yeah,
off of information instead of just whatever you feel like doing.
yeah,
And like it makes you do like informed choices and lets you like yeah make the right choices in a higher percentage of rounds than you wouldn't have.
yeah,
So yeah, it makes complete sense. So switching a bit away from Galaxy Racer, let's talk a bit about the Swedish scene. So right now we only have like Fnatic
yeah.
on the top, and then you see like Dignitas, like I
Yeah.
don't know.
I think Nip is actually higher than Fnatic
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
true. Yeah, Nib
Yeah,
as well. But
yeah,
like there's these two teams.
yeah,
In Denmark, for example, we have Mad Lions, Heroic, and Astralis, who's
yeah.
like really good. So so what do you think like the Swedish CS scene really needs to like get up and have like three teams in the top 10, which they deserve?
Okay, so I want to say this is facts to why we don't have it, and
Yeah,
I think everyone in Sweden will agree, or anyone who has a scene, in any country. So like, okay, so in Denmark, the reason why you are successful, in my opinion, is because you have, on the tier 4 level, you have an IGL that I don't want to say any names because I don't want to be totally wrong where I think their
no, no,
tier is. Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you understand what I mean, right?
yeah, yeah,
So in tier 4, you have an IGL which finds these like Master League Puggers or FBLC or Danish Pro League, and they build a team. They play a little while. There's some officials. There's some LAN, maybe local LAN in Denmark, and then all of a sudden they out of the pack, out of everyone, they basically become a little bit better. Then you have the tier 3 level, and there's always one IGL from Denmark that takes care of these players. And then they build, and then all of a sudden they go to tier 2, where usually Hundan, before
yeah,
when he played, he would then take them to tier 1, and then there would be North and Astralis.
yeah,
So you almost have a corporate ladder in Denmark, where it's like tier 4, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. In Sweden, it's tier 4, tier 1.
Oh,
Like there's
yeah,
no in the middle. Like for example, the only in the middle where you would argue right now is Dignitas and Galaxy. So we're the only two teams in Sweden that I would argue that can like compete on a tier 3, tier 2 level like consistently. Um, and the problem is that there's no other stages because people go from playing Swedish Pro League and we have something called Svenska Elitserien, which I have
yeah,
never played, but a lot of people go from there, and then there's no in between. Like there, that's the problem. So Denmark has that in between level, and I think that's what we are lacking. So we don't have IGLs that teach certain aspects of the game and philosophies. Like I never had one.
yeah,
So like I'm only self-taught, and the only reason why maybe I succeeded more than others, then it's probably maybe dedication or just like without saying it in a really arrogant maybe talent.
yeah.
I
But
don't know, like
yeah,
yeah.
but
Uh,
context must have done something as
yeah,
well.
contacts too with FPLC. Like,
Yeah,
if I didn't get that 1 year of experience of playing FPLC, I would never be where I am right now because I would be so much further back. Because that way, like, I learned so much in FPL Challenger.
yeah,
So it's contacts, it's also a little bit of talent, and then also amount spent. Obviously, I played CS in 2015, and I basically played 12 hours a day since then. Like, I have had one break for a week max.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, have you ever like wondered or thought about taking the Hunden role upon yourself and then try and help the entire Swedish scene become better and like become this key figure of it?
That that's a very interesting aspect, and I never really thought about myself because I don't have the experience myself to do it. Because again, I'm just self-taught. That doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. It just means that I don't have anyone that can say what is good or bad. So I obviously had Kille as a coach before he got banned. And Kille taught me a lot, same as the players in my team. They're way more experienced than me. They played in several different Swedish tier teams, tier 2 teams and stuff. And when I played with Drake and Freddie B, they taught me a lot too. But they've never been an IGL that just like, this is how you play, this is what you should do, this is how you should structure practice, this is how you should structure how to be a captain. There's no one has told me like this is the playbook and then you basically adapt it yourself like you do in game.
Yeah,
There's no one that really has taught me be a captain. It's all just natural. And I think again that's what's lacking. So I can't do it because I don't know how to do it properly, like in terms of experience.
yeah.
Yeah,
But you could like this is where you have the chance to actually just implement your own style and like change, like just do play the style that you want to play and then like enforce it onto the scene, and then if you succeed with it you can have like this Hunden effect actually on the entire Swedish scene, because you have this interesting you are in this interesting position where you are an in-game leader, but you're also in the tier 2 tier 3 level, which you need in-game leaders for in
yeah,
Sweden, so you have this unique opportunity to actually do this. But the question there is if you want to like spend your time developing talent, and maybe hopefully after like it took Hunden like what 5 years until he like didn't lose talent, and then he became like the second best team in the world, you know.
yeah,
So like it's a grind, but like is it like that's like more a question of your determination of like do you want to get up to the tier 1 scene yourself, and the method you want to do it in, you know.
yeah. Yeah. So I think I don't know how. I actually don't know a lot about Hunen's career in general, except in CS:GO. With all the teams he's played and how lucky he has been and lucky and like.
Yeah,
But I don't know. I've played CS for 5 years. I played professionally. I would argue 2 years. Like in a team, 1 year arguably, and then 2 years in terms of FPL and seen as a good player or whatever.
yeah,
So I'm literally only in the beginning of my career, like literally only
yeah,
in the beginning. So doing that doesn't seem necessarily bad if you had maybe the players that you would believe in. So if I would have like 4 players right now that I knew from personal experience in SPL or whatever, um, then I could maybe just do like, hey, let's do a mixed team. Let's see if it works together. We play tournaments, we qualify to some things, and then we play some HLTV matches, and then we can build from there.
yeah.
I think a lot of people want to do that in Sweden. The problem is we don't have any talent in Sweden.
Okay.
Like like obviously there's a huge gap with the IGLs, but there's also a huge gap between players. So I don't know right now anyone. I'm thinking I don't want
Yeah.
to say
No,
anything
no, no,
bad,
no. Yeah, yeah.
but like right now there's no one in my head that pops up that like talent, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like maybe that says that I don't know enough about my own scene, which is also a problem. There's always been a problem in Sweden scene. Like we only know the tier 1, and then tier two, and then we don't know anything else. You know, like
Okay.
most
Yeah.
people that are up there. So I don't want to be arrogant to say there isn't one. There probably is, but I don't know that person. The only person that I would say right now that has proven himself pretty well, you know, is Chaos in
Yeah.
terms of, you know, playing in Fnatic stand-in. He did well. Now he's playing with Gen G. You know,
Yeah.
he's played very well on FBL too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think all the Swedish talent are in literally Nip and Fnatic.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah. So like the method that was used with Fnatic as an example is like they had this academy team where Golden was on, and then suddenly
Yeah.
they lost their caller, and then they took Golden up, and then he lacked a lot of experience, and they needed to give it to him on tier one before he could become good. So
Yeah.
there's yeah, as you say, there's this grassroots problem of in-game leaders. Do you have
Yeah.
any real idea of why that is such a big problem in Sweden?
I think uh, I was about to say going back 1,000 years and
Yeah.
talking now, okay, but I think most people lack the ability to be a captain in Sweden. A lot of we Swedish people are very, especially Swedish scene, we're a bit emotional. Okay,
Yeah.
we talk shit about each other once, maybe behind our back, and everyone hates each other for 5 years ahead. You know, that's just how the scene works. And I think a lot of people don't forget things, and then also I think people don't want to take the responsibility of, okay, I'm going to be a captain, and being a captain is hard because you need to tell people what's wrong, what's right, what's not good, what's good. And I don't know, I think a lot of people don't like to hear that either. We are very arrogant in Sweden. I was one of them, and I still am a little bit arrogant, but in a good way, I think, you know, because
Yeah.
you need to be a little bit arrogant to succeed. um, but I think just people, we're not very good at team play, I think, in Sweden. Um, and I'm not speaking for everyone. I'm not speaking for, you know, the broad spectrum, but people who maybe have a talent or who is good, they basically need to learn how to play as a team and take down their confidence a little bit and their arrogance a little bit, and then, you know, basically build something together. But I
Yes.
think that's super hard.
Yeah. So
So I
be
think,
like generally more open-minded, right?
yeah, open-minded. I think that's a general problem. And then there's a lot of people who don't. I'm actually one of them sometimes, that I feel like being IGL obviously puts your individual skill at halt. And sometimes I feel like, okay, I can definitely a better individual player than I can be a captain. So sometimes I feel like, is this the good right job for me? But that's also a little bit arrogant speaking, because
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not saying I can be better than anyone, but I think I can be better than anyone. It's like a struggle being like in between, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. In
Yeah,
limbo.
yeah. So I think a lot of people don't want to take up a captain role either, because it's way more work. Like, this is the first team that I would say that I was the IGL, as I said,
Yeah.
and I did so much extra time watching demos, playing individually, and then practicing. And like there was one day where I had to we practiced for like, no, we played a flashpoint qualifier or something. Like we played 10 to 12 hours, and then I had to watch like 3 4 demos to prepare for the next best of 3 next day, because we qualified through. And
Yeah.
then it was like 2 a.m. and like I'm still, and then I also had to DM before I go to bed. I have to wake up earlier because I need to DM, and then, you know, like all those aspects is just way more hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It gives you a completely different like strain on like a mental level actually.
Yeah. And then also oh my, I don't even want to speak about this, but the pressure on playing in game.
Yeah.
And then also, because I want to say I'm a pretty hard fragging in IGL, like that's why I think I can be very good as an individual player too. A lot of people in the Swedish scene that I played with, like in terms of Drake and Freddie B, even playing with Hampus myself, a lot of people compare me to Hampus, the same micromanaging style, the same loose but
Yeah.
default style. And, you know, Hampus is a very good individual player, and he also came from, you know, bottom to Nip, and
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
went through godsend and stuff. But it's kind of the same story for us. And uh, I don't know where I was going with this. I forgot.
No, it's fine. It's
Uh,
fine. So yeah, basically, Hampus he was also trialed by fire in NIP, and
yeah,
you're like the step before getting trialed by fire, right?
yeah,
Or
maybe.
maybe 2 steps
Uh,
before. Yeah.
we'll see.
Uh.
But I think the point I was trying to make is that
Yeah.
being a captain individually too, the pressure in game
Yeah.
is insane. like you should call right, you should adapt to your teammates, you should adapt to your enemies, you should also play yourself good, you should also individually adapt to the enemies, what they're doing on the server. And then also if you have a oh, that's the point I wanted to make.
Yeah.
So when Hampus and I have a very micromanaging based style, that means we talk more, we look more at the radar. We don't have a structured style where it's like you do A, B, C, and then you finish on D. You know, like we
Yeah.
have a, and then we have something in the middle where it's like it's not random, but it's micromanaged, and then you have the D points.
Okay.
And that micromanaging in between takes a lot of time to think about, and you have to think about your teammates and all those
Yeah.
aspects, and that puts a even bigger strain on what you're doing yourself as well. And I don't know, the pressure is immense every time you play an official and you don't shoot well, but then you also have to micromanage others to do well. Like I don't know, sometimes it's just too much, but yeah.
Yeah, 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 it makes complete sense. So,
Yeah.
like, also like playing under pressure, it's also something you actually have gotten some experience with, like both in FPL, right? But also especially on Galaxy Racer with getting some decent results in there and playing in Advanced and Mountain Dew League, right?
Mountain Dew League, yeah.
Yeah. So can you maybe talk a bit about how you like in the beginning how you try to handle the pressure and how it actually helped you become like help you become better at handling the pressure?
I think so. Beginning in 2017, that was the first time I played with the Yapaleno core, and at the time they were very good. Like they were probably like in terms of what they were playing against, they were probably better. In like we played against Fnatic in a best of three for qualifying with WSG,
Yeah.
and I think at the time they were top one, top three in the world.
Yeah.
So like we played against the top three in the world, and then we also played against Gambit, who just had won the major. Obviously, Zeus left and stuff, or maybe it was Hobbit. I don't remember who,
Now
but
Zeus left.
yeah, Zeus left. So we played against the major winning team online in a best of three, and a lot of people would say that we benefit the underdogs. But that was my first time playing in a team in my entire life, and it was the first time I was also play. I was kind of an opera back in the days in terms of my skill level.
Yeah.
So I didn't play a lot of rifle, and my rifle positions on CT and T was literally like anchor and support entry. Like imagine putting an opera in those positions as a rifler, and then also the first time playing against a team in a team, and then also playing against the world's best teams in some aspects. Like it was horrible.
Yeah.
Like the circumstances were horrible. So even though I wanted to do good, I prepared good, I did all the necessary steps to be a good team player and stuff. I couldn't do it because I wasn't skilled enough and I didn't have the experience enough. Um, so I think that aspect of just being super bad just kind of took away some of the pressure later on, because I realized that I already played horrible. There's no reason to be nervous, in the same
Yeah.
comparison at least. I am still nervous to every official. It doesn't matter if I'm playing against the worst team on the planet or the best team. I'm always nervous. I think that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
some means some would say that it's a good sign for you. Like it's a sign of you being prepared. Actually.
yeah. So I really don't mind being nervous, but I think that took it away a little. And then in FPL, I remember the first, the, I had just won FPL qualifier. I did the monthly thing,
Yeah.
like not the ladder, but the like the weekend qualifier,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
days. And I remember that I was ahead with like 40 points or something, and they basically announced me the winner early, and they gave me an invite early. I got in early, and I was just like, okay, I see Santaris in queue, I see Simple in queue, I think Nexa was in queue. I don't remember exactly what, but it was basically tier one players that I dreamt of playing with, even if it's a like pug aspect.
Yeah.
And I joined the queue. I had just played a qualifier for basically 7 hours straight. And imagine the nerve wracking. Like even though I was ahead, there was one game that was super close in the qualifier. Like my adrenaline was like this to
Yeah.
that to this, and I had no energy left. And I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna play. I think I killed three my first game I ever played in FBL.
God
Like three
damn.
kills.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, that was so bad. I have to play one more, because if I played so bad and then didn't queue and maybe people realize it, or whatever it might be. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna play one more. I think I shot 5.
Yeah. Well, it was
And
better.
two more kills,
Yeah.
and then I went next game, and I think I shot like 10. We lost all 3 games, and I felt so bad because I realized I shouldn't have even played the first game. And then I basically went to bed, and then I won my next 3 games next day, and I played well. and then I played decent, and it was basically a 50% win rate on a few of the months, and then I just won my first month, like after 5 or 6 months being in
Yeah.
FPL. And then after that point, when you win FPL, and even though a lot of people might not like you in terms of like how you play, how good you are, how you adapt, like all those things that a lot of people care about, and me too when I play FPL, I think a lot of people gain more respect because they realize that even though I was calling and being a super fucking tryhard, because a lot of
Yeah.
people don't really like that. It's a mix. Some people like it really tryhard. Some people like it. Yeah, it's just one of those things that you do when you're bored.
Yeah.
So a lot of people hated me for it. A lot of people loved me for it, and some people just were neutral.
Yeah.
Uh, but when I won my first month, people were kind of okay. He can do it. Fuck it. Let him call. Like
Yeah.
yeah. And ever since then, it's been fine. And I would call most of the people in FPL right now my friends because I know them for 2 years more now. So yeah.
Great. All right. So now we've talked a bit around it, but let's talk specifically about it now. So your like the roles that you play. So
Yeah.
can you like try and sum up like your roles from the like strongest to worst?
Okay. Entry fragger worst.
Yeah.
Lurker, probably my best role, and then I would say my captain role, and then I would be a third in kind of player.
Yeah.
And my rifle, like before, so I think my bio is, even though it's a little bit cringe, my bio still says like hybrid because I
Yeah.
can do both because I rifle and I op. It depends on really, especially in FPL. I think anyone in Pugs can say you can be an opper in Pugs, but it also depends on how good you are as an opper because everyone can op and kill one who's standing behind a train and just wiggle peeking into you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the impact you have and how you adapt to your team, all those things matter in Pugs too. So I think I'm a hybrid. Like I could function in a team as an opper too, with a little bit more experience. Like I would still struggle with it, but
Yeah.
I think I could be a good opper too. But I would definitely say my lurking as a rifler is the best, like right now.
Yeah. And then captain as second, and then
Yeah.
Auber as third, maybe.
And the only reason why I put my captain ability second to my lurking is just because I don't have a lot of experience, um, like being a captain and being a leader and those kind of things. But I think yeah. So now when you basically mention it, so now I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I told my agent Jerome for Prodigy. Um, I already got, after 24 hours of posting it publicly, I already got like 1 or 2 offers who were interested in me. It wasn't like here's your buyout money, but here's just like we might be interested in you, because the season isn't over. It's more like what are you doing, what do you want to do, what roles do you want to play and stuff.
Yeah.
And my agent put down immediately, he's an IGL. And then I thought about it. It's like maybe even though it's a free tier 2 offer, maybe the best thing would be to just put me as a lurker or a rifler first, because then if I finally join a team that's tier 3, tier 2, my logic is that I would actually have an IGL that has done it for a while, that has the experience, maybe not to teach me specifically. It's not like he's gonna do it on off time, but I just like happy he shows his perspective on how to play. And this IGL that I would join now, he would also show his way of playing, and then I could actually build something off it. Like I can actually take that experience with me and be a better captain myself. Um, so, but my end goal is not to be a captain or a lurker. My end goal is just to be what I feel like is best at the time.
Yeah.
So, um, so if someone asks me in like 2 or 3 years, do you want to be the captain or a lurker? Like I don't really know. I think I'm good at both, and I think I can do both, but I need experience in both to know. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Have you thought about maybe just like taking the captain role to you and just learn from your own mistakes and then learn from the more experienced people you're gonna play with? So let's say in a year from now, Cajun B is out of North, and you play with on a team with him. A
Yeah.
guy like Cajun B could teach you so much,
Yeah.
even like with his experience. So like as a scenario like that, have you thought about it?
Yeah. So that's basically what I did now with Galaxy,
Yeah,
essentially. And I think obviously it didn't work out this time. Doesn't mean it won't work next time. But I think when you're in IGL, there's always doubt on what's good, what's bad, what's best for the team, what's not. And I think I'm in a point of in my career where I feel like it's just better to let someone else take the reins and then just listen. It's like it feels like going to university and the first day in I'm the professor, which doesn't make sense, right? Like you
yeah,
need to learn first. And I don't know. I feel like it could work. I think it could be good for me, but I think the best way is just to have someone else just teach you, like low key, without mentioning it, really,
Yeah.
just to see their perspective. Yeah,
What about getting an experienced coach who could teach it to you? Would that
yeah.
be a better solution or one you would prefer, or would you definitely prefer the teaching, like learning from an established in-game leader?
I think learning from established in-game leader, but I think the coaching isn't necessarily bad either. But the problem is that a coach in these days, at least, have
Yeah,
way less influence on a team. Like maybe not in the preparation and maybe not in terms of what is good and bad, but it's more in the server how they react to different scenarios, what is best for the team in 4v4, like those small things that you actually learn from. Because I think like if you look at all the analysts right now on the like the ESL and
yeah,
Flashpoint and all these things, the, most of them have played good level of Counter Strike, but some of them haven't. Like some of them have just watched CS and learned it theoretically,
yeah,
and I think that works. And I think everyone who has a lot of experience in CS can understand CS and know what's right and wrong. If Simple would do a move on whatever and he kills two people and then maybe dies, maybe some who is more experienced in them, like for example a pro player in tier one, would say, well, he died and didn't kill anyone. It maybe looks like a bad choice, but actually he made the better choice because he made space for the team. But
yeah,
maybe someone who's an analyst doesn't understand that because they just see dead, killed. Do you understand
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
You
So
talk like the lack of experience they have on the server,
yeah.
because that's
So
something you get, like that's something completely different than what you get like in game than watching.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's kind of what I think is the same is about the coach and an IGL. So a coach from a theoretical point of view with all the answers in hand. I think theoretical construct is very easy, not easy to understand, but it's way easier. And but what I would want to learn is actually what to do mid round. And if, for example, on let's say Mirage again, it's a 14-14 round. They have two ops. Would you rather do? This is obviously a preferential style of calling,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but just learning how that person thinks
yeah.
would help me a lot because I adapt a lot. So as a individual player and as a captain, so what I would want to do is just getting more perspectives on how to play rounds and situations and what to call and when to call it and those kind of things. That's why I would prefer an established IDL over a coach because they have less influence in terms of those aspects of the game.
Yeah, like a bit of a weird comparison, but you can compare it to, like, let's say if you're in a war, then there's like the field general, who's like the corporal whatever, who's
Yeah,
like leading the troops, and then you're like a foot soldier. So either you want, so and then like the corporal is the in-game leader, and then like the general who's controlling the entire army would be the coach,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
see it in that sense. So you
Yeah,
would
you
learn.
could see it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very weird
No, but
reference,
makes
but
sense.
yeah, yeah. So you
It's a little bit
wanna,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
so you wanna learn in the battlefield before and get the experience there before you can go up and become a corporal, like an in-game leader yourself,
yeah,
and
yeah,
learn from him from his experiences. Yeah, yeah, okay.
yeah. And I think that makes sense in any aspects of any sports game, like job. Like you can't just be a boss all of a sudden for a $1 billion company. Like you need to have some sort of, yeah,
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 experience. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. All right. Okay. So, um, let's talk a bit about your strengths. Or we have actually talked a lot about your strengths. Can you talk a bit about your weaknesses? Now, you've mentioned lack of experience, but is there
yeah.
anything else that comes to mind as of this moment?
I think, well, arrogance is one of them.
Yeah.
Like I think it's one of my super strengths and one of my super weaknesses. It's hard to explain why, but I'm a very in real life, if you would meet me on the street and if I had a normal relationship with a friend or co-worker, like whatever it is, I'm a very logical person on how to make decisions in my life, and you know, I'm a very logical person. But in CS, I'm a very emotional person, which doesn't make sense at all, which is very illogical, and I hate it because I'm a logical person.
Yeah.
But in CS, I I'm very based off emotions, what I feel is right, how I feel physically, mentally, like all those aspects are super important to me, and I know every CS player is that those aspects are very important to them. But me specifically, I get more. like defined by them maybe than more than others. I would say at least. Um, so one of my few weaknesses is that sometimes when I feel that I'm super good, like I'm the best player on the server, I'm doing the best like that, and then all of a sudden like I'm winning the game for the team, and then maybe I feel like, oh shit, I need to do something because I feel so much better than maybe everyone else, and then just at that 14-14 round, maybe I would do a mistake that wasn't necessary because I had too much confidence or arrogance, you would say.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen a lot, but it can be my strength and my weakness. So I would say arrogance, and then also sometimes yeah, no, I think that's the way to explain it.
Yeah, yeah. So like the thing about arrogance is that you actually need some arrogance because if you're gonna peek simple with an orb, you need to have the arrogance to think that you're gonna shoot him out. You know,
Yeah,
you can't
for sure.
be hesitant because then he's gonna kill you every single
Yeah,
time. You know. So in that sense it makes sense. But also like one thing that I've like noticed now with speaking with you is that you're actually really humble in a sense, and you want to just learn, and you have like a hunger of learning and improving your game, which is like a key aspect of becoming better as well. Which is something that a lot of younger people has a really hard time doing because they think like their way of doing it is the right way. The same with established pro players; they have a hard time like changing their views. Where you are in like as a place right now where you're just trying to learn and
yeah,
trying to get all the information you can and then like define and create your own style of play and try to identify yourself as a player.
yeah.
It,
And yeah, I don't know where that come from. Maybe it's just okay. I have maybe philosophy on this.
yeah,
Maybe it's just because I was so arrogant and bad before when I was talking about an FPL
yeah,
challenger when I got invited that maybe I realized, okay, I don't have all the answers. Maybe okay, I might be intelligent, I might have talent, I might be better than a few percentage of other people in the game, but there's always someone who's better than you. And if they're better than you, then you should always maybe not think like them, but you should at least understand their perspective. And I'm a lot like that in real life too when it comes to friends and politics and like humanitarian, like whatever it
yeah,
is. I always try to think from every perspective, and then I have my own opinion, and I try to base it off those two perspectives.
yeah.
And I think that's the same in CS too. But maybe that comes originally from CS when I learned that the hard way that I wasn't the best. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a bit about your practice now. Like
yeah.
how you learned how you taught yourself to set up practice, but also what methods worked for you and what methods didn't work for you, and like the entire spectrum of it. So let's start with what how did you teach yourself to do like proper practice?
Individually first, or
Yeah, we can start individually and then
okay,
take it onto a team level
yeah.
afterwards.
So individually, um, I would want to say that I was kind of inconsistent with my aim before, especially on the lower level. Like my aim is probably one of my bigger benefits now, but I realized that the only way to get better aim is by training consistently with it. So for like there was a period in 2017, 2018 when I started playing FPL Challenger that I literally played 2 to 3 hours of DM every day. And it wasn't necessarily to get 10,000 kills on aimbots or whatever. I played for 2 to 3 hours where I felt like my wrist was literally broken,
Yeah,
and then I would play some games, and you know, the the learning and the in-game mechanics were more important than actually getting the feeling for the game. Like uh, playing FPLC and stuff. So I played more DM. So I was more practicing my individual aspect more than anything else, and I did that for like basically 2 years straight. Like I think I remember there were people who asked me, "Go queue FPLC. There's only you left," and I was like, "I haven't begun my DM maybe in 3 hours."
God damn.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Obviously, that was also a problem because I learned. So this is what that was one of the weaknesses with it, is because I felt like I needed to play 2 to 3 hours of DM every single day to be at my best, which was obviously not true, and that's not how muscle memory works. My practice was more aim practice to get better, like consistently, but it wasn't a way to warm up your already muscle memory aim.
Yeah,
Does that make sense,
yeah,
right?
that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah. So so it's a good and a bad thing because I realized at that point that I need to cut down on my hours, um, and I did so. So I started playing like 30 minutes instead, but I kept that for like maybe 2 more years. and I kept playing like before every prac, before every official, before every pug. Like even if it was face it, no matter what it was, I was always doing 30 minutes. No, there's no minute under it. If it was 25 minutes, I was like, let's go Kuna, 5 more minutes, like
Yeah.
5 more.
Yeah.
Like it was almost obsessive. And then I realized that having that sort of obsessiveness over how much you DM isn't. You should only do it where you feel like you warmed up, where you feel like you're hitting your shots, or you're. Because most of the time when I join a server, like first day of like first minute, I just feel what I'm lacking in. So, for example, my movement, if I'm like peeking corners too wide or too short, or how I'm moving the mouse, like whatever aspect it might be, I just felt it and I just worked on it more in that warm up
Yeah.
routine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then basically after like 5 to 10, 15 minutes, I was done.
Yeah.
But I still do aim practice every day. Like I try to get at least 1 hour of DM every day, and that's together with the warm up. So I always do before I play official, and like in terms of warm up
Yeah.
and practice and stuff. But I always try to do 30 to 60 minutes of DM before I go to bed, and that's more of a aim routine more than practice or warm up.
Yeah, yeah. So this is where you actually play DM, not as like to practice like sprays and jiggle peaks and different mechanics
Yeah.
instead of just because like a lot of mistakes that people do is like they talk about, oh, my KD is amazing, I have like 700 kills
Yeah.
and 100 deaths because I sit in a corner and wait for people to spawn and kill them,
Yeah.
like yeah, you don't get anything out of it, so you actually practice with the goal of becoming better, like
Yeah.
in your mind. Yeah.
And every day is different. But right now, for example, my spray is fucking horrible, and I
Yeah.
don't know what happened to it. Like I have the same sense, I have the same rest, and for some same crosshair. Like I'm not a big fanatic of changing things in terms of fanatic in terms of changing settings.
Yeah.
But I have the same settings for a few months, and then maybe I change some things. But sense and all that stuff is always the same. But for some reason, the way I pull down my like if I force an AK spray, I always first few bullets is in the middle, and then I
Yeah.
spray down.
Yeah.
But for some reason, sometimes my bullets go left and right. Like I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing? So right now, my number one priority, right, like just at this moment, is practicing just my spray. So when I go DM every single day, or when I do my DM routine, I spray more than I tap, or
Yeah.
uh, you know, yeah. So I work on my spray right now. But the weird thing is, I know how to spray. I know the pattern. I know how to do it. It's just sometimes you just forget it, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's stupid, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe people don't forget it, but I feel like I just need to work on it sometimes. And then same with tapping. Sometimes I feel like my tapping is just horrible, but my spray is fantastic. So I always try to balance it, and that's what I try to do every day when I go into a server and a DM. I always have a goal in mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't have a goal, and sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna kill 100 people just because I want to feel warm. But most of the time, I always have a goal with what I feel like was lacking the previous day, or what I feel like it's been lacking for a long period of time, where it feels like it impacts how I play, where I miss my shots, where I know I'm good on certain maps, and so on.
All right, so let's talk about practice on a team level, and you can take Galaxy Racer as an example if you want. So,
Yeah.
so how did you like start out finding out? Like, how did you figure out how you wanted to practice in the first place?
Um, I think I'm a horrible person to ask this because I feel like I still don't know. Okay, so when I joined the core, they kind of had a way of doing it. Well, we both agreed on this. We wanted to begin at 12 every day. We had like our 7 to 8 hour regime of playing, and we had 1 hour break. And then before officials, we always played 1 hour, like practice. So we had like
Yeah.
getting the sense of team play and warming up and so on. Then you would do individual before, and then like a normal practice day, but you
Yeah.
only had one practice before official. And that's just the way they did it. But I think I would do the same. Like I think it makes sense how to do it like that. Like in terms of practice, I'm really bad at setting goals for some practice. Like what you need. So, for example, if we're gonna play Vertigo on practice and our A is really weak, then obviously, yeah, let's try to focus on our A and try to get better at it. But that's more of a team situation, because even though you're a captain, and for example, if I would play mid on Vertigo, I know what's a weakness, because I know what we lose more rounds on, or we lose more rounds on. But it's still up to the players sometimes to actually take the initiative and say like, okay, every time they just rush up A, we don't know how to do shit. and let's try to do this, because they're actually there. So it's
Yeah.
more of a individual and aspect to do it, and then create as a team. But I don't know. I didn't have a lot to say in terms of. Well, I did have a lot to say, but I didn't add a lot of comments to it in terms of what we should change or what should get better. It was more of them because they had more experience in doing so, I think.
Okay.
Then I always added an opinion, of course. Like if I felt like okay, we shouldn't do this or we should do that, then yes, I did it. But mostly I was just neutral. I listened to them so I could learn actually.
Yeah.
And then if I felt like something was way off, which it never was, then I would actually comment. And if I felt something was really good, then I would say, yeah, of course, let's do that. But most of the time, I listen, then yeah, let them have a say.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So what about practicing reactions and taking in like initiative to make plays? Is that something you've had to try and learn yourself, but also try to teach your players, or did they actually know how to react probably
I
in
think,
different scenarios? Yeah.
yeah, I think most of, for example, on T sides, if I'm dead, I think every, okay, since I haven't been on every team, I really don't want to be wrong about this, so I don't want to say too much, but I feel like if if you're dead, whether you're the IGL or anyone, you can be the entry fragger, like whatever you are, and you're dead, and you see a 3v3 scenario, I always appreciate the dead person calling for other people. Okay, you saw, like, for example, Dust 2, which is the best, because there's so much things going on.
Yeah.
If you take the A site, it's all of a sudden they killed you through smoke, maybe it's a 3-on-3 situation, you traded the site guy, and then you would be in an after plant. There's a lot of corners and there's a lot of situations where it's like, okay, they can do that, they can do that, and everyone is in their own zone. So sometimes, if you're dead, in my opinion at least, whether you're a captain, entfragger, lurker, whatever you are, just take in the initiative and say, okay, um, Freddy, go hold car, hold CT, you go goose, hold that, and then if they peek, because we have a long player,
Yeah.
you just flash behind them goose and they can wide pick short together. Like
Yeah.
just having a plan as a team, that I would count as a reaction, right? Because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not set in stone what you would do, but it would be something that you reactively just do together.
Yeah.
And I think I did that a lot, because like a lot, a lot. I think that's one of my biggest strengths as a captain, as being micromanaging, but also saying what people should do in a scenario where they couldn't say it themselves.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a duel, you can't just say, "Guys, go flash behind me. I'm gonna," it's a lot of
Yeah.
other things that enter your mind. Um, so I think that is up to every individual player again. But obviously, it's the best if the captain does it, because obviously the captain already has more authority than anyone else on the team in terms of what's right, wrong, or what they want to do. Um, I think the ideal should do it more maybe and take that a little bit, because it's a high risk as well. Because if you do a mistake and you say something wrong, even though it's a high, like for example, it's 14-14, it's a really stressful round. They do something that you didn't expect, and you call the player to that position where that person died.
Yeah.
You will hear it after the game. Trust me.
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck are you talking? You're dead. But then all of a sudden, if you win the round, then you're obviously the hero. But it's
Yeah.
a, yeah, it's a really hard position to be in, but I think it's for the best to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, because like generally when you talk about face it box, at least especially actually, it's where people like they want you to just be quiet
Yeah.
when you're dead, unless there's some essential information they didn't see or
Yeah.
yeah.
But for example, we said it before we went live, but I just played the Cash Cup qualifier in ECA with a few
Yeah.
friends, and we went through semis. But I realized today that I wasn't micromanaging people necessarily much, because we didn't face a lot of opponents. But it's just like, okay, go boost here, do that. And I noticed that I do it so impulsively, like I do it so naturally, like I don't even think about it. But then when I realize I'm in a situation, I'm like, I don't see everything. Can someone please just tell me what my teammate is doing? So
Yeah.
instead, I have to ask. So I don't think it's a very natural thing for people to do, but I think everyone should do it if they want to become a better teammate, because it's not necessarily what you do when you're alive. It's also important what you do when you're dead. And if you're just dead and looking at your phone, not doing anything, when you could have won the round first by just saying, okay, we saw that he's doing this, blah blah, that would be equally important as killing two people, in my opinion.
Yeah, also just highlighting info. So let's say
Yeah.
B guy dead, B guy dead, he wasn't short. Okay, then react B,
Yeah. Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah, and those things are super underrated.
Yeah.
I would rather have a player that did that for me, like as a you would call dead weight in terms
Yeah.
of fragging than someone who shot 30 a round, because you would win more on that information and that, like, those mid-round aspects than someone just killing two every round.
Yeah.
Because even if you kill two every round and if you don't have a teamwork in terms of after plant or uh, retaking, then you will lose rounds anyways. So I would rather have a teammate that is a complete player than someone who's just a highly fragging person.
Yeah.
If that's something, yeah.
Yeah. So like experience over talent, basically,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
some
but
senses. But you can't
yeah,
have
if
four. You need
yeah,
talent as well to win. Yeah.
yeah, obviously.
Yeah. But I get what you mean. I get what you mean. All right. So this is actually where we end up. Round up the interview. We've been talking for an hour now. So do you have?
Really?
Yeah, we have. So do you have any final words, messages to people out there? Some tips maybe for upcoming players? Anything?
Well, we sure. Actually, so pretty good platform to do it on.
Yeah.
So I don't I want to be I want to clarify this. I don't think anyone's a fan of me, but if people follow and they want to be in IGL or they want to be a good team player, I think in the middle of our interview we kind of spoke about uh, you know how to be a good teammate and not, and how you want to learn, especially like you said that I was pretty hungry to learn
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
adapt.
Yeah.
I think that's the number one thing. Like, you can work on your aim 10 hours a day and you can watch simple play and kill 30 people every single time and so on, but to be realistic about it, you will probably not have that talent, because there's only one simple, there's only one cyber, there's only one Nico, and all those three are very individually talented on their own. But there's a reason why there's only three of them that you can name that are like, wow, mega talents. So instead of watching those players, try to get our own fundamental understanding of how CS works and then build your own play style. And also be very hungry to learn, like you would say I am.
Yeah.
Like, understand that CS is a game that you can play in 100 different ways, because I think you can almost put it in three different zones. So you have the bad zone, which is down here, like, the red zone, where you should never do this ever in your entire CS career. You can do a mistake, but you should never do it.
Yeah.
It's very few. There's maybe 5 or 10 things in CS that you can say is really bad. But then there's the gray zone, and the gray zone is like this big. There's like hundreds of thousands of different gray zones where it's good, it's bad, because it depends again on teammates, map, who you're playing against, what the enemies have been doing, what your teammates are doing. Like, I can go on
Yeah.
for an hour
Context
just, yeah,
basically.
context basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the context is super important. So CS is very context based. So you can never say what's right or wrong in the gray zone, in my opinion. Like, it's very hard. At least you can always say, oh, your teammate did that, so you could have done that, but that doesn't mean what you did was necessarily wrong. It's just you maybe just failed.
Yeah.
But your intention was good. But then the top part is the good part, where it's like the 5 to 10 different things. Like, that's really good. There's always the best thing to do in a scenario. For example, like, always trade fragging your teammate if you have the scenario to do so. You should never just let someone be able to kill your teammate and go back.
Yeah.
That's just one of those examples. But you should understand that CS can be played in 10 million different ways in terms of context. And just because you have a different philosophy than someone else in FaceitPog and he tells you, oh, shut the fuck up, you don't know what you're doing, you're so wrong. But you're like, well, from the information you had and the context you had, it was the right decision, but it didn't play off well. But maybe in another, dimension, it did work. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So so just be really hungry to learn, be really like open for interpretation, and also have learn different philosophies of CS. Learn the three books that we talked about. Be super aggressive, be in the middle, and then super like defensive. Like, be if you can learn to be those three as a player, and then being able to be a good team player, you will basically be a complete player in some senses.
But
Yeah.
don't underestimate the time it takes.
Yeah. That's obviously I've spent since these 5 years. I spent 10K hours. I
Yeah.
played for 10K in 5 years. That's a lot of fucking
That's
time.
a lot of time.
That's a lot of fucking time. And if you would compare it to other people that played, the CS is still built on players from 1.6 Source. They've been playing the game for 10 years, maybe casually, or 5 years casually, and then they've had a pro career for 10 to 15 years. And when you put yourself in playing against those people, you would obviously have way less experience, and they will have that playbook that we talked about, those 3 different pages, perfectly complete to some sense compared to you.
Yeah.
And you just begin to scratch one part of it. So yeah. it takes time and it takes a lot of patience and also dedication to becoming better.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
hunger and the passion for the game itself,
yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah.
Great. Do you want to shout out anything? Any last, final words?
Oh, I think I'm good. Yeah, well, I can. For some reason, I well, because the first person that popped into my mind is Jerome. It's
Yeah,
my agent, who the agent for Cyber as well and Apex and all these like really good players. I don't know. He's helped me a lot throughout my career so far. I've been with him a pretty short time. I think it's a year soon, maybe half a year. But I don't know. He's helped me a lot, and yeah, he's a great guy. And he's actually supported me more than I think more people. And then my parents, of course.
yeah.
Yeah, my parents are nice too. Yeah.
Great.
Huh?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.